We want to kick it off by having a little poll. So if everyone could pull out their phones and get on their app. We're very curious to find out what kinds of non-traditional research materials you have in your repository. So if you could start that would be great. And if you can, I think you might be able to tap all that apply. Let's see. Well, I think you're in the right place then. Okay, so, what'd I do? Okay, I'll just hold it then, thank you. And it's hard to see where I am. All right. So I'm going to tell you briefly about Berklee. So in 1945, Lawrence Burke, who was a big band musician and arranger, founded Schillinger House School of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. Schillinger House was the first music school based on the revolutionary premise that America's contemporary music was worthy of rigorous study for practical application. Essentially, he was creating a trade school for musicians to be able to go out at night and play in the clubs. And we got a lot of GIs after World War II who came through the GI Bill. So name changes followed in 1954 and 1969, as you can see, along with the awarding of bachelor's degrees. So Berklee's footprint and stature continue to grow and expand, establishing Berklee Online, which is the world's largest online music school to this date, and opening campuses in New York City and Valencia, Spain. So in 2016, Berklee also merged with the Boston Conservatory, the oldest and one of the most prestigious conservatories in the United States for dance, music, and theater. And it just happened to be around the corner. So it was a pretty easy merger in most cases. So as you can see, Berklee has come a long way since Schillinger House was founded and continues to expand its global presence and influence through such innovative programs as the first film scoring program in the country, possibly the world, the first songwriting program, the first school to offer electronic guitar as your performance major, screen scoring now instead of film scoring, which is for film, video game, and augmented reality scoring, and electronic production and design, which includes majoring in electronic digital instrument. I know, that confuses me a little bit, but that's okay. So currently we have 4,000 students, 4,000 plus at the college, 1,200 plus at the conservatory, 200 master's students at the New York campus, 300 students at Valencia, most of whom are masters, and like 10,000 plus at the online because it's certificates, one-off classes, bachelor's and master's degrees. So, although Berklee College of Music had offered a handful of graduate programs on and off throughout the 2000s, it was not until Berklee Valencia opened in 2012 that a permanent graduate studies department was established. Berklee always does it the way they want to do it, so that's why. And so fortuitously, the Berklee Archives was also established in 2012 and was given the mandate to collect and preserve all graduate projects, or as we call them, our Culminating Experiences, or CEs, most of which include non-traditional elements. So Berklee's graduate studies and archives are happy to say that we have finally found a platform, vPress Digital Commons, that allows us to fulfill our mandate and give open access to these important projects after many, many iterations of workflows, processes, and access. So I'm now going to hand over the mic to my colleague Soon Zhu, who will tell you about the CE requirements and submission process.
So, as Janae mentioned, we have various programs in various locations, and I'm based in Valencia. So for the purpose of this conference, I divided our project into two categories. So for the traditional material type, so it's like the research paper, business plans, and our students also organize festivals for the city, and also we also have our own record label, so students manage that. And so and on top of also the composition. So we also keep the record of students' film score composition. And so all those are in the PDF format. but music's supposed to be heard rather than to be described. So of course, we also have those non-traditional material types. So it's very common for us to get like students' original EPs and albums in audio and video format. And also, it's already very common for us to get the music software application files. And then the other very challenging one is called music production project files. So these are the files are usually huge, and then when you open up, you will see the magic of how the musicians like put all the music elements together and how they layers all the instruments and to create this unique sound. So like it's very common when we receive the student's project file, it's a combination of both together. And so next. So for the submission process, so our school is, our graduate program is designed for 1 year, like they are meant to be complete in 1 year. So about May and June is the time when we send out the communication to the program director and students to make sure they follow our required file formatting and the naming standards. And then students will upload the files to their assigned Google folder. And then we are also ask them to complete a consent form, which will specify the submission terms, embargo elections, and agreements. And so for this part, honestly, we have been collecting this for more than 10 years, and we are still negotiating with program directors about the file size and how many files. For example, we do have the program director want unlimited file numbers, and also not gigabyte, terabytes of data. Was like, it's not sustainable. And so now we currently limited to 20 files and maximum to 10 gigabytes. That's for now. and then next, then we will move. So in July will be the time when we harvest the submissions. And then depending on the embargo they select, we will put them to different folders. And then around September and October, that will go live to in our institutional repository called Remix. And just Berklee always love acronyms. So Remix means research and media information exchange. So now I will pass on the mic to Michael, and he will tell you all about how we manage those challenges, like those file types issues. All right.
Yes, so I'm Michael Burke, and I'm the Digital Repositories Librarian at Berklee. So I oversee more of the day-to-day operations of our repository. And I'm going to walk you through some of the design challenges we had while we were trying to put these multi-component, oftentimes very large, as you just heard, files and projects into digital commons. We had been collecting these for 10 years, as you've heard, and we've been making them available in our Islandora instance. This is a screenshot of what that looked like. The organization was highly nested, and it was not a very easy browsable experience. So you had to click down through each year as opposed to each program, and then get to the program, the student, and then all the different individual files. Thinking about what Permita said yesterday about how users today are expecting a modern experience when they're visiting these platforms and looking for research, it's very important for us that these student projects have a professional feel. Oftentimes, these are their first contributions to their profession, to the creative fields, and so having a platform that reflects that was important. Our processing stopped in 2020 with COVID, and so in 2022, when we joined Digital Commons a few years earlier, we had the opportunity to migrate all these projects. There's about 1,200 of them, and then create a new workflow for entering them into Digital Commons. So this provided us an opportunity to have better discoverability in browsing, but it also gave us a chance to standardize some of these very varying projects. We had many conversations with both our amazing DC consultant, Ben, our program administrators, other librarians on campus, and ultimately decided that we would use the Digital Commons book gallery. And I'll be talking about our very specific project needs and why we chose different things, but hopefully you can take away from this talk how you might creatively use the Digital Commons platform in different ways based on the unique needs of your materials. So we chose the Digital Commons book gallery for a number of reasons. One is that creative projects often have titles that don't make sense, or rather are very unique or not descriptive of what the project is about. So it was important that we were able to have the abstracts directly browsable on the collection page so that users could understand what was happening within a project. However, by choosing the Digital Commons Book Gallery, there were a few challenges. To allow for streaming players to function, you can only choose one item for that. So we would, for each program, determine what was the most important or the most common file to highlight within a project. Oftentimes, this was a project video that was produced by the student that documented the entire journey of the project. And this was a sort of way to engage with providing some audio and some visual experience on the item page without compromising any of the usability of the material. Another challenge that we dealt with in the design process was that for that streaming player to function, the item will be uploaded as the primary file, and I apologize as I'm getting into the weeds a bit. But for these projects, the album as it was recorded is equally important to some people as perhaps the score, or perhaps the business plan was just as important as the event documentation. So we didn't want to unintentionally, and this was the concern of program directors, elevate one part of a project over another. So as you'll see in this screenshot, the book gallery handles additional files in such a way that they're first all together at the top of the page. And by disallowing the primary file download, you can still have an object streaming player, but this way you can also have all the additional files appear with equal weight. So we really appreciated working with our consultant and with some of the administrators on determining that process. So as you've heard, we've dealt with a lot of different formats, sizes, and all sorts of organization. So our best practices are just to follow standards set by your local institutions or professional organizations whenever possible. We are based in the US and follow the Library of Congress's sustainable file formats most of the times when determining what kinds of video files we would prefer from students and what kinds of material we are willing to accept in the archives. However, we would often also think of these project files as our access copies. So for those of you coming from archives world, you will understand the difference of your preservation copy and your access copy. And when you're dealing with such large files, as you heard, nearing the terabytes, we had to oftentimes compress files for our own workflows for processing these projects. So we had a general rule of thumb that we would compress videos that were over 3 gigabytes. And this was a good solution that was a compromise among different stakeholders. We would often then try to zip together different files according to their type and maintain as much as we could the intellectual or creative organization set forth by the student. So this would be keeping audio files together and naming them in the description album when they did describe it as an album. Otherwise, we might just keep calling them audio files. Video files were kept together as were images, scores, etc. Finally, as you have heard, we offer embargo election to students. In the creative industries and creative practice, as we've talked about today, artists can be quite protective of their work. So one challenge when we moved from Islandora to Digital Commons was that the amazing search engine optimization that we love for our journal and for our other works was actually leading to an increase of takedown requests from our students. So we've done a lot of work to try to work with our community stakeholders and program directors to make sure that we are protecting their work, giving them the embargoes that they would like to match this new sort of level of discoverability. It is a little bit of a challenge currently. The streaming player and additional files aren't included in the embargo function, so we're hoping that there are some developments that can help us with that. But for now, we keep our files separate and from our uploading of a metadata record, and then when the embargo lifts is when we usually go back and then upload all of our files. Finally, we're also operating among different campuses in different countries, so we're also constantly trying to keep aware of different privacy laws as they're going into effect, so we're evaluating some GDPR things as well.